Hi everyone, welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. My name is Artem, and here is the news. For 963 days, Ukraine stands strong against the forces of the Russian invasion. Despite the last-minute cancellation of the Ramstein format meeting of Ukraine's partners due to the storm that hit the US, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy conducted a European tour. This week he visited Germany, Italy, the UK, and France. In all those countries, Zelenskyy met national leaders and discussed the continuation of their support for Ukraine, defense cooperation, including in the form of joint production, as well as presented his victory plan. When commenting on his latest visit to France, Zelenskyy said that Kyiv wants to see the creation of joint Ukrainian-French production facilities in Ukraine. The head of state reminded of the Danish model when the governments of partner countries invest in arms production in Ukraine. According to him, the new French model is an opportunity to attract investment specifically to establish new production facilities. Andriy Yermak, head of the president's office, said Kyiv is expecting feedback on Ukraine's victory plan from its partners shortly, reports Ukrainska Pravda. Yermak emphasized that there have been in-depth and substantive conversations in various capitals, with partners fully engaged and understanding the purpose behind the victory plan. Meanwhile, Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the president's office, announced that the president will present the victory plan to Ukrainians in the coming days, reports Unian. The official noted that the main points have already been presented, everything related to political, diplomatic, economic and military pressure on Russia to end the war, even though without numbers. Podolyak said Ukraine's partners who make direct decisions on the provision of the weapons needed, or certain legal permissions on their use, will have the details and figures they need. Mikhailo Podolyak confirmed that Ukraine's strategy to stop the war does not involve freezing the conflict, declaring a ceasefire or transferring territory to Russia. Russian forces have probably executed 9 Ukrainian prisoners of war in Kursk Oblast, Russia, reports LB. According to Deep State or Sint Initiative, the crime took place on 10th of October near the village of Zelený Shlях. Analysts highlight that Ukrainian troops advanced to their positions under the impression that they were in a relatively safe area, only to encounter Russian forces. They were compelled to respond, but ultimately surrendered due to a shortage of ammunition. Human Rights Commissioner Dmytro Lubinets also responded to this information and called such actions a gross violation of the Geneva Convention relative to the treatment of prisoners of war. Quote, I have once again sent letters to the UN and the ICRC regarding another crime committed by the Russians. These actions must not go unpunished and the enemy must be held fully accountable. Russia is a terrorist state that violates all the rules and customs of war. The international community must not turn a blind eye to such crimes, unquote. The Institute for the Study of War informs that North Korean soldiers are already fighting in Ukraine and several thousand North Korean military personnel are undergoing training in Russia, with the possibility that they may be deployed to the front line in the future, reports Ukrinform. According to the Washington Post, South Korean and Ukrainian officials have stated that North Korean soldiers are fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. A Ukrainian military intelligence official noted that some North Korean officers are present, observing Russian forces and analyzing the battlefield in areas occupied by Russia. However, Ukraine has not yet detected any North Korean military units actively operating within the country. The Ukrainian official reportedly added that several thousand North Korean infantry personnel are training within Russia and that the Russian military command could deploy them to the front line in Ukraine by the end of 2024, or to the Russian border areas to free up Russian reserves to fight within Ukraine. A recent Ukrainian missile strike near the city of Donetsk is also reported to have killed several North Korean military officials. The institute points out that North Korean forces might aid Russian efforts to commit additional manpower to priority offensive operations in Ukraine and prolong the culmination of the Russian summer 2024 offensive operation. We would really appreciate if you could rate us, ideally with 5 stars, or leave a glowing review in the app where you're listening to this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and others. This really helps more people to find out about the highlights from Ukraine and truth about Russia's invasion. Over the weekend, Ukrainian conscription officers and police conducted raids in clubs and restaurants in Kyiv, Dnipro, Kharkiv, Khmelnytsky, and other cities, reports Ukrainska Pravda. According to the law, all Ukrainian men were obliged to update their personal details in the conscription offices by mid-July, but not everyone did. Police and conscription officers have the authority to check the men's papers, and if they weren't updated, to write them a letter obliging men to come to the conscription office, or even to deliver them there with the help of the police, which is often the case. Updating your data doesn't always mean subsequent conscription to the armed forces, but often is followed by such. One of the most widely discussed episodes took place in Kyiv, where police and the military checked the papers of all men after the concert of a well-known Ukrainian band Okan Elzy. In the process, some of the men were detained. These actions caused a discussion in Ukrainian society, as some of the social media users claimed that photos and videos of such raids with men taken by the police and the military helped the Russian propaganda to create an image of Ukraine as undemocratic and that Ukrainians don't want to fight. At the same time, others point out that if those men obeyed the law and updated their personal data, as well as went to serve upon receiving a conscription notice, these raids wouldn't be needed. Recently, the media informed, based on sources, that the cabinet stopped the process of giving out conscription waivers to those who have rights for them on the grounds of working for the company that's essential for the country's defense or economy. This happened after the President Volodymyr Zelenskyy expressed his dissatisfaction by rapidly growing numbers of Ukrainian men fit for service who received waivers. Reportedly, this number reached about 1.5 million. He asked the cabinet to recheck all of the companies declared essential. Thank you for listening to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast. We're a commercial initiative of just two people, and we need your help to grow. Share information about the podcast, rate us in the app, subscribe to our Patreon. With your support, we are getting better.
We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.